Members of the Biden administration fanned out across the East Coast yesterday for memorial events marking 21 years since the September 11th attacks. In New York City, Vice President Kamala Harris and Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff paid their respects to the more than 2,600 people killed there that day and more than 1,000 who have died in the years after being exposed to dangerous toxins in the pit. About 300 miles away, just outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania, First Lady Jill Biden honored the 40 people killed when United Airlines Flight 93 crashed into a field there. The First Lady was also joined by her sister, who is a flight attendant. And in Washington, President Biden mourned the close to 200 people killed when American Airlines Flight 77 struck the Pentagon. There, the president reflected on the way America united following the deadliest terror attack in world history.
In the midst of these dark days, we dug deep, we cared for each other, and we came together. You know, we regained the light by reaching out to one another and finding something all too rare: a true sense of national unity. To me, that's the greatest lesson of September 11.
Hard to imagine, Admiral Stavridis. It's been 21 years. I was a young reporter in New York City that day. I was at Ground Zero in the days ahead, and even now, 2 decades on, the skyline doesn't look quite right, and certainly it's still a very hard day for many. But let's have you weigh in on what the president said there, this idea of national unity and purpose that came for the aftermath of the attacks. The world's changed a lot in those 21 years. Do you think this nation still has it in us to summon that strength of resolve and unity again for another upcoming challenge, whatever that might be?
Well, having lived through 9/11 in the Pentagon, and I was on the side of the building that was struck by the aircraft, I actually caught a glimpse of the airplane. I was about 150 feet off the impact point. And in the immediate aftermath of that terrible moment, we were all trying to do whatever we could until the heroes of the day showed up, the first responders. In that moment, Jonathan, there really was a sense of not only we're going to come together, there was a sense of real purpose, and I would say real anger. What has happened here? We cannot let this stand. And so we went to war. To your question, which is the right one to ask, when you contrast almost 1 million dead in the pandemic and the way it has riven the country and not brought us together, you can begin to feel perhaps we can't recapture that. But I'm optimistic, and I think most Americans are optimistic. And I point, and I'll conclude here, at the way in which the response to Ukraine has really crossed party lines. What's the only city in the world, trivia question, that Mitch McConnell and the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, have visited? That would be Kyiv. And so we can do this. And I think that our response to this kind of activity in Ukraine and the horrors that Richard spoke about a moment ago can help unify us again. So let's be optimistic as Americans, even as we look at a terrible day in our past.
Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander James Stavridis, thank you. And Richard Haass, same question to you. Do you think Kyiv is sort of ground zero for democratic values and that fight? And of course, your reflections on 9/11, 21 years later.
Well, 9/11, I was in all place. I was in Ireland. I was literally in the office of the Prime Minister. I was the U.S. envoy to the Northern Ireland peace process at the time.
Wow.
And I remember standing with him. We got the words of the first attack. We watched the second plane on television, went out and did a press conference. And that night, of all places, Mika, I traveled to Belfast, the city that in my generation was synonymous with the word terrorism. And, you know, it just felt incongruous. And, you know, I remember speaking to Colin Powell about how we needed to respond and so forth. And that was, you know, that day. Here we are 21 years later. I'd like to agree with Jim Stavridis. I think it's tougher now, though. I think it's tougher in part because of social media, the suspicion, the conspiracy theories. I think it's harder to bring this country together. I don't think crisis is quite the automatic glue or motivator in our society that it used to be. I think we've learned that. That said, all sorts of things still matter. Leadership still matters. Religious leaders matters. Parents matter. The society can come together. I just think we have to understand it's not automatic. We can't be passive. If we want the society to come together from the top and from the bottom.
Participate in it.
Exactly. Good things don't just happen.
Right.
Good things happen when good people work together to make them happen. And that's from leadership at the top. And we were lucky, I think, on 9/11, George W. Bush rose to the occasion. I think Joe Biden has risen to the occasion on Ukraine. But also from the bottom. I think all of us have a role to play. And that, to me, is the big lesson of 9/11.